it is 5 o'clock, so I will call the Finance and Personnel Committee to order. We'll start with the roll call. Alder Feldy.
Present.
Alder Flicky-Pineski.
Here.
Alder Perella.
Here.
Alder Ackley is excused. Mitchell's here. We have a quorum. Will you all please join me for the pledge? The pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, then item 4, barring any objection, we'll jump over introductions and move on to item 5, which is approval of the minutes from the February 27th meeting.
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approving the minutes. Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Minutes are approved. Next up, then, we have item number 6, which is RO number 101 of 2223, submitting a claim from Bestfall Law, LLC, for alleged unlawful tax against Mid-State Amusement Games, LLC. Do we have anybody that would like to speak to this one?
Would you like me to?
Yes, please.
Okay. This claim has been denied and the letter has been sent. So we would ask that the committee put this on file.
Thank you. Alder Flicky-Pineski?
I was a little bit confused by the description that said there was another lawsuit and this particular claim had been added to the previous lawsuit, but then it was denied. Is that accurate?
So there are, this entity has filed claims in past years alleging the same cause of action, and at least one of those is in litigation.
So the one that we see before us was added to the one that was in litigation?
It looks like Attorney Adams has said that this will be added to the existing case. So typically we would expect a denial first and then a lawsuit would be filed after the denial. So if this is getting bundled into that, then the denial is the first step to bundling it.
Okay, if it's legally the right thing, I'm all for it.
I actually had the same question. Basically, it looked to me that we are going to file this one because there is already one active right now. So we file this, the current one, but that's because there is one still in progress, correct?
No, the filing of it is not because there's another one in progress. The denial is the action taken on this matter. The city, based upon policy, has already denied this claim, and so you're putting this on file. But we anticipate that this claim will be bundled into the existing lawsuit that's been filed on past years.
Okay, that's good, thank you.
Any other questions, comments on this one? If not, we would be looking for a motion to file.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, then seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it. The motion passes. We're on to item number 7, which is RO number 102 of 2223, submitting a claim from Alexandria Engel for alleged damages to vehicle when it slid on an icy road.
I'll speak to this one. Staff has reviewed this claim and has denied it. Therefore, staff would recommend that council receive and file.
Thank you. Questions, comments on this one? If not, we would be looking for a motion to file.
Receive and file. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, then seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it. The motion passes. With that, we're on item number 8, which is resolution number 149 of 2223, a resolution authorizing the Director of Public Works to issue purchase orders for the purchase of 6 mobile column hoists at the Municipal Services Building, and authorizing an adjustment to the 2023 budget to fund the unanticipated purchase. Director Beeble?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, in the IFC, these are replacement lifts. We have actually 2 sets of these types of lifts. The one that we're replacing is approaching 25 years old. We've repaired it, and now the parts are no longer available, and the manufacturer's saying this is too old for us to repair to keep in good working condition. So we're in desperate need of these lifts, as we are in the critical season of maintaining equipment. So what this resolution authorizes, as is indicated in the item for consideration this evening, is using motor vehicle funding and using the excess proceeds from the sale of old equipment that we have. So when we sell equipment, the market's been good for used equipment, so we've actually received higher revenues than expected. So that's where the source of this funding would be coming from, out of the motor vehicle fund. So looking for your support for this.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the committee? Alder Flicky-Pineski?
I have one question. Since this piece of I'm assuming it's a $75,000 piece of equipment. I have another question with that, but since it says mobile, if in 5 years you aren't in that facility, does this mobile piece of equipment move with you, or will we again see we need a 6-column hoist?
You're correct. That's the beauty of these. We've gotten rid of, over the years, we've eliminated the in-ground mechanisms.
Right.
These are mobile. In fact, the hoists that we have that are 25 years old, we actually moved from the fire department to the service buildings, because now we service the fire department engines and trucks at our facility.
Okay.
So we inherited those lifts at that time. We used them to the best of the end of their useful life, and now we're at that point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I have another one.
Go ahead.
And then at the end of this document, it says we're taking $75,000 from here, and then it said we're taking $75,000 from someplace else. Can you explain that piece to me?
I'm going to have the finance director explain that.
That would be good.
It makes it easier. So there are 2 accounts that are being adjusted through this resolution. One is increasing the revenue side, and one increases the expense. So the expense is saying that we are allowed to spend that $75,000. The second line where it states the fund equity applied, that's the revenue. So we have to have balancing accounts in municipal finance here. So that's just stating that we're using that fund balance when we close 2022 will be used to fund this.
Okay, thank you very much. You bet.
Alder Perella?
I apologize, I don't have the resolution with me, but I recall when I was reading, I was wondering, and I absolutely I support this, because we cannot do without, and also because it's good that we can repair our own vehicles, so obviously that is a necessity. But since it is such an old equipment, why wasn't it put in the budget before?
In the past, the manufacturer, the company, was able to repair them, and they were able to get parts. So it was more cost-effective versus maybe spending $5,000 to get it repaired and keep it in good operational order. That's what we were assuming they were still able to do, but now they have come back and said it's at the point where it's beyond repairable. We're not able to get the parts, and they don't feel comfortable because it's at the age. Even if they could get the parts, they're saying it's beyond its useful life. They don't feel comfortable giving a warranty, in other words, for this piece of equipment that's 25 years old.
Right, no, that makes sense. It's just that I'm thinking, I'm sure you guys have a list of the equipment that needs to be replaced over time due to aging, of course. So this being 25 years old, I would think that it was already forecasted as something that should have been done, right?
It is, and it was probably, we were looking within the next 2 years to put it in with our capital program with other equipment needs. But unfortunately, there was other priorities of equipment that were placed ahead of this piece of equipment, knowing that we were under the impression that it was able to be repaired.
Yeah, I understand.
When it changed, it became now a much more advanced priority for the department.
Just one more. So as far as the money goes, the money would be, the money that you got from the sales, is it covers the whole amount for the expense, or there will be a difference? And again, sorry, I don't have the resolution.
Yes, it covers the whole cost of this, and that's the part of the motor vehicle fund, how it operates. It's its own enterprise fund, so when we have an internal rate that we charge departments for the use of vehicles, or it's basically charging a rental rate, we capture that revenue. It's separate accounting from the general fund, so it's a revolving replacement fund. So this fund earns value with the anticipation that that value and that earnings is going to be used to replace future equipment. So everything's kind of on a schedule to be replaced. The difficulty is, a little history here, is years ago, the fund was very healthy, and the city had different priorities and needed that funding for some other uses. So it lowered the threshold in terms of what we have as a balance within that fund. So now we have to be, what I would say, much more frugal in terms of what we prioritize. And we're probably acquiring equipment on an annual basis at a lower amount than probably where we should be programming. And that's all part of the capital. So I think as you see this year, when we have the budget process and we sit down with our capital improvements process, you'll have a better understanding of the value of the fleet, the type of equipment, the costs, and what the value is to replace that equipment in order to keep the fleet moving in the right direction and keeping it functioning. The motor vehicle division is a very expensive division within the Department of Public Works. It's just not as well known because it's behind the scenes, in other words.
Thank you very much.
Alder Flicky-Paneski?
Thank you. So your department has a capital improvements budget, like everybody's does, and you also have a fleet management budget.
Correct.
So the fleet isn't considered capital improvements?
The acquisition of new assets is included within the capital program, but it's not borrowed funds typically. It's fund balance that is used to acquire that equipment out of the motor vehicle fund. But that fund also covers operations, daily operations, such as the labor to fix the equipment, the fuel costs, the repair costs for normal operations and repair, for instance, parts.
Okay, I think I understand, but we'll probably revisit it at budget time.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this one? If not, we would be looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second, then seeing no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Barring any objection from the committee, we will group items number 9 through 12 together. Item 9 is resolution number 143 of 2223, a resolution confirming the exercise of police power in making an assessment for the benefited properties against which assessments are proposed for parking assessment district number 1. Items 10 through 12 are districts 2 through 5.
Thank you. This is part of an annual process that the Finance Department comes forward requesting the permission of the council to utilize the taxing type authority that we have over the parking assessment districts. Each district has its own resolution because the expenses are captured within each district in our accounting software, and then the revenues offset those expenses. Whatever is remaining not covered by the revenues that are generated through these districts, mostly parking fees or permit fees, those are then assessed to businesses within those districts in order to maintain and upkeep those parking lots. So I'm here for any questions you may have.
Questions, comments on this one? Alder Feldy.
Do we get a lot of pushback from the businesses when we do this assessment?
If I'm speaking from finance's behalf, we get a couple individuals come through our department asking what it is, but I do believe it's more of just a inquiry into what exactly the bill is covering. So it does snow removal, maintenance to that parking lot, things like that. And most have understood once they see what is all covered, they have understood the bill.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Flicky-Paneski.
Thank you very much. Parking districts are kind of like TIF districts in my head. The numbering of the districts doesn't make any sense, so at some point, can we get a map about where the districts are or a description when it comes forward again?
Absolutely, I'll make a note for next time.
Thank you.
I do like visual aids as well.
That's great.
Any other questions, comments on this one? Or I suppose these five? If not, we would be looking for a motion to approve.
So,
To approve.
second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, then seeing no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it. The motion passes. Items 9 through 12 are approved. Before we take on item number 13, I'm going to step back as chair and cede the seat to Alder Flicky-Paneski for this item. I will be abstaining on the vote.
All right. We are looking at Resolution 153, 2223, and we have our HR Director at the podium. Send us off.
Yeah, so this resolution, as you know, we have been without a city administrator for a little bit of time here. And there are numerous areas in the code that allow for department heads to take actions on certain items with the approval of the city administrator, but without it having to come to council. Council has decided that certain things can be decided with just the department head and the city administrator. So with the lack of a city administrator, there have been numerous items that have had to come to council that normally could just be approved by the city administrator. There's a group of us consisting of alder people, the attorney's office, and myself and the mayor, who have been meeting to kind of discuss the timeline of the new hire, and we anticipate that the new administrator would hopefully begin in the summer. Given that, we think it's best not to hire an interim for a few months, because by the time they got on, learned everything, we would already have someone else in. But this resolution is an attempt to bridge that gap between those times to allow department heads. It's primarily HR and finance that are mostly affected by these ordinances. This resolution would allow the chair of the Finance and Personnel Committee, not an individual, whoever is sitting in the chair seat, to act as city administrator only insofar as approving those things that department heads bring. So a great example, just as a for instance, is acting up pay. So in the Code of Ordinances, council has determined that the Human Resources Director can determine whether or not someone qualifies for acting up pay and get the approval of the city administrator, and then that acting up pay can be acted out, right? Currently, as you've seen, 2 times now they've had to come to council for council to approve that because we don't have an administrator. So under this resolution, if someone needed acting up pay, the department head HR would work that out, and then the chair of the Finance and Personnel Committee would step in. The resolution does not give the chair of the Finance and Personnel Committee any other powers of the city administrator. They are not acting as an interim city administrator. They have no other additional duties other than approving those things that are listed in the ordinances where a department head has the authority given by council to act with the approval of the administrator. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
I would have you explain acting up, because it sounds like a recalcitrant teenager. What's acting up?
Yeah, so it's a specific provision in the code, and the only reason I bring it up is because it's the most recent action that the council's had to take. So when there is a position missing, so let's say a supervisor is missing, and there is an employee that is a level below them who acts up into that role only for a short period of time until that role is filled, the code allows that employee who acted up to get a specific amount of pay. It's a percentage based on their current salary, and it's all written out in the ordinance. The ordinance says the HR director can make that decision with approval of the city administrator. So that's an example of where the with approval of the city administrator would just be with approval of the chair of the finance and personnel. And the reason we chose that is because the majority of these things, almost all of them, are personnel and finance related matters. So it seemed to make the most sense that the chair of this committee, which is getting all those requests currently, would be the one who could step in to fill those. It will streamline the process and help department heads be able to continue to move things along until a city administrator is put in place.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, hearing none. Oh, Alder Perella.
So my main concern is why, so actually it's not the concern, but I wonder why couldn't the mayor, for example, have the same responsibility, which to in my mind makes more sense.
Yeah, so the conversation, we discussed who would be the best person to fit this role. Given the fact that the council has determined numerous times in the past that they want to keep the mayor, city administrator role separate, the mayor doesn't have any personnel responsibilities in his role, or in their role, it's currently a him. So as mayor, he doesn't oversee any personnel, he doesn't oversee, he's not a supervisor of any personnel, he has no role in that. And we don't want to we thought it would be best not to muddy the waters and give him personnel supervisory roles for 5 months and then have them taken away and given back to the city administrator when the city administrator comes in, because they are two very different roles. They have very different tracks or lanes. So that's why the decision was made for the chair of the finance and personnel. Also, in theory, the chair of the finance personnel, it should be more familiar with the personnel and financial matters, given that that's the committee that they chair, as opposed to the mayor, who's more focused on external relations, morale, things like that.
And for the record, can you give me a little bit more examples? So what are those? To me, the fact that we are giving authority, and with all the respect for my colleague and chair of the committee, which I don't doubt at all. I mean, I have no doubts about the individual, but the fact that we are going to give authority to someone who is not the city administrator in this case, and without our oversight as a committee, it doesn't feel very. I don't feel super comfortable with that. I don't feel completely comfortable with it. So what are the other types of decisions and authority that the chair would have? In this case, in his function as functions of the administrator?
Yes, I'd be happy to provide a full list of them, and when I go through them, some other ones, though, for example, would be filling positions that are already vacant without having to post those positions, so like an internal promotion, for example, or hire without the posting, things like that. But I'm happy to provide you a full list of everything. Again, we went through it, and most of them are in the 92, I think is my chapter, and finance. So most of them are in the personnel and finance, but I will provide a full list of that to you tomorrow, or as soon as I possibly can. I also just want to point out two clarifications. We were very certain that we do not want it to be an individual, so that is why it's the chair. So with elections coming up in April, should Chair Mitchell no longer be the chair of the Finance and Personnel Committee, it will be whoever the chair of the Finance and Personnel Committee is. And again, the thought was that role is the most appropriate role, given their position as the chair of the committee that handles the items anyways, which is why that role was selected. Again, ideally, this is a way for department heads to streamline processes without having to spend 3 weeks going to council, committee, council, in this time where we don't have a city administrator. And the chair was just who we thought would be the most appropriate, both from a professional background, but also a knowledge and equity standpoint.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Alder Perella, I was part of that conversation, and I would add that if at any point the sign-off authority, the chair of the Finance Personnel Committee does not feel comfortable signing off on the authority, it would come to this committee. It would come directly here.
And further, the resolution states that at any time, you, the council, can rescind that. So it automatically terminates upon the hiring of a new administrator, but it also says, or at such time that the council deems it no longer necessary. So if 3 weeks go past and you're like, hold on a second, these things happened and we don't know about it, we don't like this idea, the resolution gives you the power to rescind it whenever you feel it is no longer necessary, if that happens before the new administrator is in place.
Any further discussion?
Chair?
Yes?
So, yes, I would appreciate that list, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we have
Better late than never.
better late than never. There she is, Barbara.
How many times do you guess this might happen, that you'd have to go to Trey? I think that's something he might want to know too.
Yeah, so I would anticipate it happening no more than 3 times a month, that there would be something that came up. Again, the most recent example would be the acting up pay that the 2 people in the finance department received. That came through, they were from finance, right, Caitlin? That came through council instead of going through just HR, city admin approval. But
Interrupt and say that one of those was acting up pay, one of them was not.
Say it again.
One of, HR Director Westbrook mentioned 2 situations in finance where acting up pay was utilized, and it was only one. The other one was not utilizing that ordinance.
Okay.
Just to clear the record.
Thank you. But it is an infrequent thing, but it is something that will help, again, for the next 4 months till there's an administrator in place, streamline the process.
Yes,
Can I go?
yes, you may.
Okay, now that I got that answered, I just want to know, is most of this done like over the phone or email, or does Trey actually have to make an appearance?
So the Trey would actually have to make an appearance to sign a document, but in the conversations, whoever, I shouldn't say Trey, the chair of the Finance and Personnel Committee
Thank you.
would have to make an appearance, but it would be something like, I would call the chair and say, hey, chair, this is coming up, this is what I plan on doing. Whenever you have a second, if you can come up to HR, go to the clerk's office and sign it. That's it, right? And so it would not be a commitment other than finding a spare 5 minutes to come in and sign, and the rest can happen over the phone, right? So if we do another acting up thing and he has questions about the whys, that can all happen over the phone because the council has given the HR director along with department heads the authority to make those determinations in-house without coming to the council with just the administrator's approval. That's a power that you've already delegated. So that would be how the process would work.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, Chair will entertain a motion.
Can I ask a clarifying question? I'm sorry.
Yes, you may.
Would you like me to send that list to the whole council, just finance, or just Alderperson Perella?
Whole council.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Yep.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to recommend the resolution to council. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Thank you. Chair votes aye. Motion carries. I will now turn the chair back to Alder Mitchell.
Thank you, Alder Flicky-Paneski. With that motion passing, we are on to item number 14 now, which was a direct referral of resolution number 156 of 2223, which authorizes entering into a development agreement with GenCap Sheboygan 101 LLC regarding an affordable housing project to be located on or near the former Kepsel property.
Thank you. I'm not normally the one to do developers agreements, so you get myself and Assistant City Attorney Majerus on this one today. So this is the project that has previously been discussed in closed session. It has the 83 senior housing affordable apartments and 18 live-work affordable apartments on the former Kepsel property, which is over on Indiana Avenue between 9th and 10th Streets. This is utilizing both ARPA and TID incentives from TID 17 to help assist with this development. The reason that this was brought forward so quickly was because this developer has gotten approval for WIDA tax credits. So that's what's making this project viable at this time. So I am here for any questions on the project.
Questions, comments? Alder Flicky-Paneski?
Thank you very much. I am familiar with this project from Redevelopment Authority. It has been in process for easily 18 months, and I've met with the developers and with staff at in the development office here, and it really is an exciting thing. So I would hope that we can move this forward so that they can fund with tax credits and all the available other funding other than city tax dollars.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, I guess just a couple comments from me. I'm very excited about this project. We've done a lot of talking about how difficult it is to support affordable housing and what options are available to us. You can see all of the moving pieces that are involved on this one, somewhat validating that point, but also it's nice, somewhat of an occupational hazard to talk about problems a lot. It's nice to be doing something about them. So very much looking forward to seeing the development, and with that, I will ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second, then seeing no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. We are up to items for discussion only, and we'll start with number 15, which is the Uptown Social 2022 Annual Report.
Thank you. I trust that you all can read, so I will not read the report to you. I know you have paper copies in front of you, but I do want to focus on page 5, which is the data. I don't know about you, but I get excited about data, and numbers don't lie. They only tell us the truth. So I'm just going to go over this a little bit. One thing to note, our department started utilizing a new software system in early 2020 for tracking attendance, participation. They were implementing it just as the pandemic hit. So the numbers for 2018 and 2019 are very much guesses based on the old system of tracking from before my time. But starting in 2020 moving forward, those numbers are very solid and we can have a lot of faith in them. So as you can see, we saw an increase in visitors, attendees, memberships, attendee hours, program hours offered last year. Obviously, that makes sense because November is when we opened up in our new building. So we anticipate that now 2023 we'll see those numbers just explode as we'll have 12 months of attendance instead of a month and a half. So any questions about this? Any questions about what's going on at Uptown Social?
Questions, comments? Alder Perrella?
So first of all, I'm very excited about what's happening with Uptown Social. So I have only positive things. I'm always very pleased to see the program and I drive by in the morning, the parking lot is completely packed, so I can see how people are enjoying it. But I would be more interested in you telling us more about it, as far as what is your feeling about how things are going right now.
Sure. Well, it's interesting you bring up the parking lot as an example because it's a little bit of a sore subject and that parking is already causing us problems. So for those who've been coming, our attendance has exploded so much more quickly than we were anticipating. That parking lot, the city owns half of it. The Habitat for Humanity Restore owns the other half of it. And so if you look at just our parking spaces alone, it's really actually the same number that we had at the old building, which was a complaint at the time. So now in trying to be good neighbors to the Restore, the Department of Public Works is helping us in fabricating some signage that will dedicate some spaces just to the Restore. It's not so much an issue on Mondays and Tuesdays when they're not open, but on Wednesdays and Thursdays, things can get really wild by us. And so we want to be good neighbors. And we're trying to schedule special programming on Mondays and Tuesdays and not so much on Wednesdays and Thursdays because things can get pretty hairy out there. I'd also, remind you that we just have 3 full-time staff. And so the 3 of us are working very efficiently and we're working to keep it going. I'll say it's a challenge when any one of us is out because 2 people alone in a building with now in 2023, our average daily attendance is closer to about 200 people a day. So with 2 to 3 people keeping things running, it's challenging. We're making it through. Fortunately, after being open for about 3 months, our volunteers at the front desk have really come into their own and have been very dependable. So we rely on them a lot, but we're just thrilled with the growth. It's a challenge, but it's a great challenge.
Any other discussion? Alder Feldy?
I want to congratulate you. You have done a super job. I know it's been trying at times, and it hasn't gotten any easier, I can tell. But I just want to congratulate you on the super job you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. We certainly have new challenges, but I'll say it's been really lovely to have everything in one place. You might not know that in the time when we were without a permanent space, we actually were offering yoga in this room, which I thought was pretty charming in our time in City Hall to see about a dozen people doing yoga in the middle of the day. This room actually doesn't get a ton of use during the business day, so it was kind of nice. And on a beautiful day with the blinds up, it was pretty. But it's been logistically easier for us to handle bringing everybody to one place and having a home base.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alder Barella?
2 quick questions. One is, do you have any way to track how many people actually use public transportation, as you have a nice bus stop right there?
We are not currently tracking that. I do know in the feasibility study that was done back in 2019, prior to the purchase of the new building, prior to the move, that was a pretty extensive survey, and they did survey respondents at that time on how they get there. We haven't done that in our time, but that's a good idea. I will say, I've mentioned to Director Menk that AARP has a program that they suggest in their livable communities for public transportation advocacy day. And so one of the things we're talking about when the weather improves and we're not drowning in snow, but having a public transportation advocacy day where we encourage our participants, our board members, our volunteers, and our staff to utilize public transportation to get more comfortable and to encourage their friends to use it. I'm also trying to work on getting bike racks, but it's kind of this joke at the city that nobody really knows, like, who's the keeper of the bike racks. So if you ask the mayor, he kind of laughs because it's sort of this moving target, but everybody wants bike racks. So.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that, that's what I was thinking, and maybe finding a way to incentivize the use of the buses, think in that direction would be very good, because that bus stop is just perfect, obviously. But I had one more question, actually. which aligns a little bit with what you were saying about employees. Have you thought, or have you given a thought to opening Saturday and Sunday, or at least Saturday?
So that is something that people have asked for, both weekends and evenings, because as you know, we serve adults 55 plus and many 55-year-olds are still working. So it's something that I would love for us to consider as the team grows. I also would want to make sure we're doing our homework ahead of time, because we often know that, sometimes if you ask people, would you take advantage, they'll say it's nice to have, but we would want to make sure that we know that people would actually utilize it if we do stay open. But it's on my radar as that's the direction that we're going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alder Flicky-Peneski?
Thank you. Thank you. I have to use this opportunity to say there is an Uptown Social board, and there is also the Friends of Uptown Social, and my husband is a card player at Uptown Social and plays cards with a number of those people. They are a very active and engaged group of volunteers and have been extremely active in fundraising efforts. Mm-hmm. So our tax dollars are being, there's more than just tax dollars here, because that group has done its advocacy very well. So extend our thanks to them also.
Absolutely. And we have, over the past few years, seen an increase in charitable giving from foundations and corporations. I think you all know that the Friends and I are actively working on soliciting funds to pay for the second phase of construction, which we're hoping to kick off this fall and have completed as winter hits next year. But it's one of those things that we talk about where if we're already struggling with 3 full-time staff and a parking lot that's a challenge, and then we want to add an additional 5,000 square feet of finished space, that kind of adds a little bit more fuel to the fire. And I'll be a little cheeky, but that gym will likely be used very often for pickleball players, and I hear that they can be difficult. So if any are watching, I think they know.
Alder Feldy?
I know this is on your radar. Troublemakers. They come at many different ages, so, and I know that's something that you're trying to address, but do you have a lot of problem?
So actually, we haven't had very many. Alderperson Feldy is on our commission, so she knows that earlier last year, the commission approved a code of conduct, and so that code of conduct is posted in every room of the building with the focus that if someone is behaving improperly, that we can refer to that. And actually on our agenda for this week, we'll be discussing an escalation clause that I used the library as a resource, but basically hoping that the commission will approve that. Fortunately, we really haven't had a lot of issues like Alderperson Flicky-Peneski mentioned with her husband being very involved in the card group. Our participants are really self-policing. So if we've got some troublemakers, often the staff don't really have to intervene because other participants will tell them to knock it off. So if people have a bad attitude, others will be like, no, that's not how we treat each other here. And they kind of deal with it themselves. It's really nice for the rest of us.
And I know there's only 3 staff, but maybe some de-escalation training, maybe that might help too.
Yeah, so since we opened, we have been participating in a number of staff trainings. So one was the real exciting bloodborne pathogens. We've got our plans. We have, our staff has all been CPR and AED certified, but actually in the coming weeks, we're gonna offer a training partnering with the fire department, actually for our volunteers, because they've asked for it. When the weather improves, we're gonna do a fire extinguisher training. I can't remember, but a de-escalation is one that's on our list too. And actually, I think I brought it up at one of the management team meetings about CIVMIC, the city's insurance company, has some de-escalation trainings, but they're geared toward police. And so I had asked if maybe that's something that they would consider offering for more of the general customer service public, but that we could offer that to our volunteers as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on this one? If not, thank you, Director. And we will move on to item number 16, which is the Human Resources Department 2022 Annual Report.
So I'm going to follow my esteemed colleague and say I trust that you all can read. I just want to highlight a few things. Page 3, of course, I didn't number my pages, but that has the red and the green highlights. As you know, I got hired in January of this year, so this entire report is not me. As you also know, much of 2022 did not see an HR department. This page right here shows you the red are people who left, the green are people who were hired, and many of them were hired and then left. So 2022, we're going to say, was a year of growth in the HR department. Thankfully, we have some really great people here at the city who stepped up and stepped in. Obviously, you already know Caitlin and have recognized her for her work. But Carrie up in the administrator's office and Kate in my office, who was hired in October, also took a huge load and worked really, really hard doing the jobs of 4 people. However, effective tomorrow, we have a full HR department. So Hannah's our newest team member. She starts tomorrow. So that's not last year. So some successes from last year. We had some well-being initiatives. Did some trainings. Yep, we'll keep moving. Turnover last year was 14%, which is a little bit higher than we would like. My goal is to keep it around like 7 or under is an industry standard goal that we want. High performing teams are under 5%. I'm going to shoot for 7. The big thing, the health premiums did not increase at all for employees, so there was no increase at all for health insurance, people who are on our plan. That was a great benefit in 2020. Also, our plan is performing extremely well again for the second year in a row. 81% of what was budgeted, which is great. And then the last pages are talking about the goals of HR, and again, I'm super excited for our whole team to start and take on all of the wonderful opportunities that we have here at the City of Sheboygan. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Alder Flicky-Paneski.
Thank you. The turnover rate, 14%, actual 7 is what you would like to see. Is 14 that unique, given the post-COVID, we stayed at home and worked kind of thing?
So I would tell you 14 is pretty high for turnover. We're not counting seasonal in this. So people who we know are turning over, we're not counting in that 14%. 14 is high for people to leave, particularly people with tenure. To your point, the majority of these, not the majority, a lot of these people in this 14%, the 66 separations that we had, a lot of them were under like 2 years here at the city. So that is not atypical, right? There's a new trend that people stay in jobs for 2 to 5 years and then move on.
Right.
It is more atypical in municipalities. Municipalities generally see longer tenure, and I think it's because of all the great opportunities and benefits. So no, 14% is not like, oh my gosh, but 7 is my goal.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Alder Perella.
Yes, thank you. I was wondering if you could tell us what is the biggest challenge that your department is facing? Obviously, for privacy reasons, we don't want to know the details of it, but a challenge as a department.
So HR department specifically?
Yeah.
I would tell you technology right now is probably our biggest challenge, integrating all of the systems that we have that we want to talk, right? So we're currently not using Tyler Munis to its full extent. So one of the things that we've already started doing, again with Carrie and Caitlin, is reintegrating and trying to use Tyler Munis for all of the functions that it can. So open enrollment, we're planning on moving over there. NeoGov should connect and talk directly to there. So there's a lot of technology gaps that we're hoping to fill. So if department specific, I think our biggest challenge right now is navigating the technological programs, because right now we're utilizing so many different ones that don't necessarily talk well together. So there's a lot of manual data entry moving from one to another. So that's probably the biggest thing if we're talking just HR, like our department.
And additionally, since it has been such a big turnover, do you see the cohesiveness of the department going well, or that is taking some time to get together? How do you see that?
You're talking about in HR?
Yes.
Specifically? No, I'm actually really excited for the team we have. So you all have gotten to see Kate work. She's brilliant and extremely intelligent and just a great person. Tatum, who's our other generalist that we hired, is also just a phenomenal human being. And Hannah, who starts tomorrow, is great. So one thing that I always say, I said it in my interview, I say it when I do interview people, you can train someone how to do a job, you can't train someone how to be a kind and good human. And so I like to think that the people that are on our team now are those people who are kind and good people. And when you have a team made up of all good people, you can train them how to do the job, and the rest just comes easy because that's who they are. So I'm very excited. I have no concerns at this point. Mind you, Tatum's only been here 2 weeks. I've been here 2 months, and Hannah's here -1 day. But I have confidence that this team will stick around for longer than that first sheet of the red and green marks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? If not, thank you. All right. Our next meeting will be on March 27th. And with that, we have exhausted our agenda and are looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. There is no discussion on adjournment. All in favor?
All in favor?
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it. The motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.